Hey guys, my name is Edd Kimber. I'm a baker and cookbook author from London, and I'm here today in the Nordic Ware test kitchen to show you a couple of recipes from my brand new book, Small Batch Bakes. First thing we're gonna make is a peach crumb cake. It's super delicious, incredibly simple, and just makes a really cute 6-inch cake. So first thing we need to do is make a really simple streusel or crumble topping. All we're gonna do is take a small amount of flour, it's just all-purpose flour, some sugar. We're just gonna give that a quick mix together. You can just use your hands, there's no need to be fancy here. And then we're going to add some cold diced butter because we don't want to get this melted too much with our hands. And we're just gonna toss that together with the flour and then just use your hands just to rub it together to form a nice crumble mixture. If you want, you can add oats to this and make kind of like a classic crumble or crisp topping. But for this, we're keeping it nice and simple. And this is gonna go on top of the cake to create a really nice texture. And it does a really nice job of hiding the peach so that when you cut into the cake, you get this delicious layer of crumble, peach, and then the delicious sour cream cake. So the idea for this cake is it's kind of a twist on a classic kind of crumb cake. So almost think of like a coffee cake. I love that kind of crumble, that texture. It just is really homely and delicious. And I think it just makes for a really simple but impressive cake. And the nice thing about it is you can use whichever seasonal fruit you have. So it's written with peach, but if you've got plum or you've got apricot or you've even got grapes, we can get Concord grapes at the moment. They would be delicious in this. So it's really adaptable, simple, and doesn't use too many complicated ingredients either. It's just really straightforward. So once this mixture has come to form a nice crumble, what you can do is if you press it together with your hand, you should form almost a dough-like texture. And I like to do that and then refrigerate the dough because when it's cold, you can then crumble it down into bigger chunks. So you get a really nice variation of texture. So I'm gonna throw this in the fridge and then we'll make the cake batter. So the cake mixture is incredibly simple. We're gonna start with the actual main part, which is our butter and sugar mixture. So we've just got some room temperature butter that has been sat out so it's nice and soft. That way we can actually cream it together properly and make a really nice light cake mixture. Then we're gonna use some granulated sugar, some caster sugar, the finest grain sugar you can get really, because we want to make a really nice, simple tasting cake batter. You could, if you wanted, use some sort of brown sugar, but it will probably overpower the flavor of the peaches. So we're just gonna keep it simple and use a white sugar. So we're gonna beat it together for about 5 minutes until it's really nice and light and fluffy. Once we've got a really nice light batter, we're gonna add an egg and some vanilla. And the vanilla to me is almost like seasoning the cake. If you think of kind of salt and pepper when you're cooking savory food, it's just giving layers of flavor. So it's one of those things that helps prevent the cake just tasting of sugar. So add our egg, and then we're gonna beat that together until, again, it's nice and combined and it's not separated. Since we're using a hand mixer, I'm just going to give the bowl a little scrape down just to make sure that all of the sugar and the butter are incorporated with that egg. There we go, because what we don't want when we cut into this cake is big chunks of butter. So, quick last mix. And then we can work on our dry goods. So all we have is some all-purpose plain flour. Add that to our bowl along with some baking powder and salt. Don't underestimate how important the salt is to the recipe because it really helps to bring out flavors, it helps to balance sweetness. So don't skip it, it really, really helps. And then to create extra moistness and a cake that has that perfect kind of coffee cake, dense but moist texture, we're gonna add some ground almonds, some almond meal, which will help to give a really nice texture and make the cake stay fresh for longer. So just gonna give that a quick mix together. You don't need to sieve this, we just wanna make sure everything is nicely mixed and combined. It's simply a case of adding that to our mixture. And we're gonna add half the first time. We're gonna follow it up with some sour cream, which again is gonna give tang, add flavor to that recipe, but also it's gonna help to keep it really moist and make it last longer. So add half of our dry goods, just roughly. You don't need to be exact at this point. What you do want to make sure is that you're not over mixing this batter. If you mix it for too long, you can end up making a tough cake. So just mix it very briefly, just until everything is combined. So add in our sour cream. And again, just mix that until it's combined, just very briefly. And then we're gonna add our final portion of our dry goods and just mix, once again, just really briefly, just until the batter is nice and fully combined. So what you end up with is this nice cake batter. All we're gonna do is take a 6-inch cake pan. I'm using a loose bottom pan. If you don't need to, you can just use a regular 6-inch pan. It's been lightly greased and lined the base with parchment paper so that the cake can come out nice and easily. And we're just going to scrape that in and then just very roughly spread it out into an even layer. So we've got our diced peach. We're just going to scatter it all over the top of the cake. And again, you can use whatever fruit is in season. I really like this with peach when we can get it, because peach to me is just one of the most delicious, very summery fruits and has such a great flavor that also happens to go so well with the ground almonds. So scatter that over. And then the last thing to do is get the crumble mix from the fridge, and we're just gonna scatter that over the top as well. So as I mentioned, I've got my kind of big chunk of crumble mixture. All we're gonna do is break it lightly over the fruit. So we've got some bits that are nice and big and textured and some that are nice and fine. And that way we get a real nice variation of texture, and you get really nice kind of chunks of the crumble and some bits that kind of seep through and soak up a little bit of the juice from the peaches, just making the most delicious cake. So it might look like it's a lot, but we need to make sure all of the peach is covered. So just make sure it's nice and even, and then we can get this in the oven and bake it until a toothpick or a skewer inserted into the middle of the cake comes out clean. And that will take about 50 minutes at 325 in a convection oven, or 350 if you're using a standard oven. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven and I'll see you in 50 minutes. So the cake has come out of the oven. We've let it cool. It's still a little warm. To finish, we're just going to simply dust it with a little bit of icing sugar, confectioner's sugar, just to give it a nice little extra pretty look. And then we're gonna cut into it. Really what you should do is let this cool fully, but we want cake, so I'm gonna cut a slice. You've got the topping, which is almost like an actual fruit crumble. And then you've got the tender, moist cake underneath. Just delicious. And it's kind of a nice fruity alternative to a classic crumb cake, like a coffee cake. So just delicious. Nice level of fruit. So, so good. Great on its own with a coffee, or if you want, it's great with a little drizzle of cream. If you want to make it into a dessert, you could serve it with some creme fraiche, sour cream, some berries, or a little bit more extra peach, whatever you prefer. And I'm gonna take a little bite. You've got a really nice, moist, tender cake. It's so good. The peaches are delicious. And then you've got that delicious crumble on top. Couldn't be more delicious. Heaven.